There's a small, quiet town in Tennessee called Adams, a peaceful farming community surrounded by rolling hills and thick woods. But 200 years ago, something evil came to one of its homes. Something that terrorized a family so relentlessly, its story is still told today. This is the true story of the Bell Witch haunting. It began in 1817 on a farm owned by John Bell Sr., a respected man living with his wife, Lucy, and their children. Life was simple and quiet until one evening, when John saw something moving between the trees near his cornfield. At first, he thought it was a strange-looking animal, a creature with the body of a dog, but the head of a rabbit. Before he could aim his rifle, it vanished into thin air. That same night, scratching sounds started beneath the floorboards, then knocking on the walls. The noises grew louder every evening, as if something unseen was trying to dig its way inside. John searched the house from top to bottom, but nothing was there. Then the whispering began. At first, it was faint, like the sound of someone mumbling a prayer. Then it grew clearer. A woman's voice, soft, mocking, and cold. It called John's name. It recited Bible verses. It laughed at night when the family tried to sleep. Soon, the voice grew strong enough to hold full conversations. It introduced itself as Kate. "I am the spirit of Kate Batts," it said one night. "You wronged me, John Bell, and I will kill you." Locals believed Kate Batts was a real woman who had once lived nearby, rumored to be eccentric, possibly even accused of witchcraft. Whether she had truly cursed the Bell family, no one knew. But whatever this entity was, it wanted John Bell dead. The haunting became more violent. Objects flew across rooms. The children were slapped, scratched, and pinched by invisible hands. John's youngest daughter, Betsy, suffered the most. She was pulled from her bed, her hair yanked, her skin marked with welts that appeared as if by unseen lashes. Neighbors heard the screams and came running, only to witness chairs moving on their own, beds shaking violently, and a dark shadow that darted across the room. Soon, the story spread across Tennessee. Curious visitors came from miles away to see the Bell Witch. Even President Andrew Jackson, then a general, decided to visit the Bell home in 1819. According to his men's journals, the moment they reached the property, their horses froze and refused to move. A deep voice spoke out from nowhere. "You may enter, General, but you'll wish you hadn't." That night, one of Jackson's men screamed as something yanked him out of bed by his hair. The next morning, the entire group fled the property, refusing to return. The witch's attacks focused more and more on John Bell himself. He began suffering from sudden paralysis and violent convulsions. His health declined so quickly that by 1820, he was bedridden. One morning, his family found a small vial of strange black liquid beside his bed. The voice spoke again, clear as day. "I gave him a big dose of that last night. He'll never wake again." John Bell was dead, and the moment he took his final breath, the witch's laughter filled the entire house. At John's funeral, people claimed to hear the voice singing drunken songs from the treetops, mocking the grieving family. Then, suddenly, after 4 years of terror, the witch vanished. But before leaving, she gave a final warning: "I will return in 7 years." And in 1828, exactly 7 years later, strange knocks and whispers echoed once again at the Bell property. Then, silence. For good. Or so they thought. Today, you can still visit the Bell Witch Cave, a dark cavern near the old Bell farm, where locals believe the spirit still lingers. Visitors report cold winds that whisper their names and the feeling of being watched in the darkness. Historians still debate what really happened: mass hysteria, illness, or something supernatural. but the Bell Witch remains one of America's most chilling and well-documented hauntings. And perhaps, even now, she's waiting for someone else to believe. Because in Adams, Tennessee, they say the witch never truly left. If you liked this story, subscribe to Real Grim Tales, where true stories of fear and the unknown come to life. Real people, real terror. Every city has that one road, the kind you avoid after midnight. Dark, empty, lined with old trees and flickering streetlights. For Chicago, that road is Archer Avenue. And if you ever find yourself driving down it late at night, you might just meet a girl in a white dress. Her name is Resurrection Mary. The first recorded encounter happened in the 1930s. A young man was driving home after a dance at the O. Henry Ballroom, now known as the Willowbrook. It was past midnight when he noticed a girl walking along the side of Archer Avenue. She looked lost, barefoot, wearing a long white gown that shimmered in the moonlight. The man pulled over and asked if she needed a ride. She smiled softly, nodded, and got into the back seat. Her skin was cold, colder than the night air. She barely spoke, except to say she was heading home. As they approached Resurrection Cemetery, the girl suddenly leaned forward and whispered, "Stop here." The man looked around, confused. There was nothing but the closed cemetery gates. He turned to ask if she was sure, but the seat behind him was empty. She had vanished. The man was so shaken that the next day, he went to the address she'd given him. An older woman opened the door. When he described the girl, the woman's face went pale. "That's my daughter," she said softly. "She died in a car accident 5 years ago." Her name was Mary Bergovi, a 21-year-old who had been hit by a car near Archer Avenue while returning from a dance and buried in Resurrection Cemetery. Since then, hundreds of people have seen her. Taxi drivers, truckers, even police officers. One cab driver in the 1970s swore that he picked up a young woman near the ballroom. She gave him a few dollars for the fare and asked to be dropped near the cemetery gates. When he stopped, she opened the door, stepped out, and simply disappeared into the fog. When he checked the back seat, her money was still there, but the bills were charred as if they had been through a fire. Then, in 1976, 2 men driving by late at night saw a girl locked inside the cemetery. She was clutching the iron bars, screaming silently. They called the police. When officers arrived, they found no one. But on the gate, 2 bars were bent apart, and in the middle of the metal were what looked like handprints burned into the iron. The marks remained there for years before the church replaced the gate. Locals say that every few months, another driver comes forward, always describing the same thing. A pale young woman, in a white party dress, lost and quiet. Sometimes she asks for a ride. Sometimes she just appears in the rearview mirror. And always, she disappears near Resurrection Cemetery. People believe she's still trying to go home, still walking that lonely stretch of Archer Avenue, caught between the world of the living and the dead. If you ever find yourself driving there late one night, and you see a girl in a white gown walking by the road, don't stop. Just keep driving, because some passengers never make it out of the car. She's still waiting for her ride home. If this story gave you chills, make sure to subscribe to Real Grim Tales for more true horror stories from around the world. Because the scariest tales are the ones that might still be happening tonight. Some houses are just empty, but others seem to hold on to something darker. In the small town of Villisca, Iowa, there stands one such house. White wooden walls, a quiet front porch. It looks ordinary, but once you step inside, you'll understand why even seasoned investigators refuse to stay the night. This is the true story of the Villisca axe murders. It was June 10th, 1912. Josiah Moore, a respected businessman, lived there with his wife, Sarah, and their 4 children. Her man, Catherine, Boyd, and little Paul. That Sunday evening, the family attended a church event called Children's Day. 2 of Catherine's friends, Ina and Lena Stillinger, were invited to spend the night. The last time anyone saw them alive was around 9:30 p.m. They walked home together, laughing, lanterns swinging in their hands. No one in Villisca could have imagined what would happen before sunrise. The next morning, their neighbor, Mary Peckham, noticed the house was unusually quiet. No one was out feeding the chickens. No one had started the fire for breakfast. By 8 a.m., she grew worried and knocked on the door, but no answer. She tried the handle, locked. She peeked through the window and saw nothing. When Josiah's brother, Ross, arrived with a spare key, they went inside. The moment the door opened, the smell hit them first. Something heavy, metallic. Ross stepped into the guest room, and that's when he saw it. 2 small bodies, Ina and Lena Stillinger, lying side by side on the bed. Their faces covered with bed sheets, dark stains seeping through the fabric. He ran out, screaming for help. Police arrived within minutes. What they found inside would haunt the town forever. In every bedroom, the same scene. Each family member struck in the head with an axe. The blade had been swung with such force, it left deep marks in the ceiling. The killer had covered every mirror, every window, and every victim's face with sheets or clothes. In the kitchen, they found a plate of uneaten food and a bowl of bloody water, as if the murderer had calmly washed his hands. The axe, Josiah's own, was left leaning against the wall. No one heard a thing. No one saw anyone leave. There were no footprints, no forced entry, and no sign of robbery. It was as if the killer simply vanished. Over the following months, suspicion tore the town apart. A traveling preacher named Reverend Kelly confessed at one point, claiming that voices told him to kill. But his confession was inconsistent, and he was acquitted. Other suspects included drifters, businessmen, even a senator's brother. Yet, despite multiple trials, no one was ever convicted. The Villisca Axe murders remain one of the most terrifying unsolved cases in American history. More than a century later, the house still stands, preserved exactly as it was in 1912. Old furniture, wooden floors, even the same doors and windows. Today, it's known as the Villisca Axe Murder House, and people from all over the world visit hoping to experience the paranormal. And many do. Visitors have reported children's laughter echoing through the halls at night, bed sheets slowly sliding off while they sleep, unseen hands brushing their arms. One investigator said he woke up at 2 a.m. to see the shadow of a man standing at the foot of his bed, holding something heavy. He thought it was another guest, until the shadow moved toward him and vanished through the wall. Even professional ghost hunters have fled the house mid-investigation. One of them left his recorder running overnight, and when he played it back, he heard a faint whisper, "Come upstairs." No one knows who killed the Moore family. No one knows why. But those who have stayed inside the Villisca house say one thing for sure. Whoever did it never really left. They say at 2 a.m., the air turns heavy. You hear footsteps upstairs. A floorboard creaks. And if you're unlucky, you'll hear the sound of an axe sliding across the floor. So if you ever visit Villisca and someone whispers your name in the dark, don't turn around. You might see who's still holding the axe. If this story made you look over your shoulder, subscribe to Real Grim Tales, where real horror lives. Because the scariest stories are the ones that leave no answers.